Alors, bonsoir tout le monde. Bonsoir, bienvenue à...
Good evening. Good evening, and welcome to the regular public meeting of the Dieppe City Council this evening, November 24th, 2014. I have no specific announcements this evening, but the prayer, please. Give me, God, the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We do have quorum this evening. And are there any conflicts of interest? Does anybody have a conflict of interest on points on the agenda? If not, let's move on. The adoption of the agenda. I would need a motion for the adoption of the agenda. It's been moved and seconded. Ready for the question? All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The agenda is adopted as presented, and we will now move on to item number 7, presentations, inquiries, and petitions. We have a presentation this evening from Professor Hakpolai from the Institute for Chinese and Asian Research. Professor? Good evening. Welcome here. Good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for allowing me to make this presentation this evening on the Institute for Chinese and Asian Research. I would like to give you a brief overview of the Institute and explain to you what we do. And then I will present the framework that we would like to work on with the municipality of Dieppe, the francophone municipalities of the region, not only here in the region, in New-Brunswick, but the whole Atlantic region. As you are well aware, I am Professor Hakpolai. I am a professor in organizational studies here at the Institute, and as well as the Institute Zhangjiang de Liverpool in Great Britain and in China. Before that, I worked at the London University before immigrating here to Moncton in 2010. The Institute for Chinese and Asian Research, that we call ICAR, is a research institute, and it has been established here in Atlantic Canada to serve the local community as well as businesses in the region and in Asia. Businesses who want to do business here in Canada and more specifically in the Atlantic region. We have 3 main objectives. The first objective is to be a center for research and discovery of knowledge and knowledge on the Asian world, and to become a center for consultation on contemporary affairs and issues dealing with society and the economy. We would like to counsel businesses in the Atlantic Canada region and to promote exchanges between businesses in Asia and here. So we do economic and social research, and we do business research as well. We also do some business consulting. We give professional training. We also give language training, and more specifically, some minority language training, Chinese, Korean, Hab, and Indian. We also offer cultural workshops every month on different issues, always related to the world of Asia. Now, in terms of our consulting, we give some management consulting in our HR and in leadership training. We also organize visits in the winter and in the summer for managers from China who want to come learn about Western management and to visit the region. We also have summer programs for students who want to come visit universities here in order to be able to continue studying in a university here in Atlantic Canada. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we also do research, economic and social based. We also do some applied research, and we organize regional and international conferences. We are hoping to organize an international conference here next July, not this coming July, but in July 2016 and 17. Currently, we have a regional conference, and I can leave you one of our posters. It's a conference on the future of the Atlantic region in terms of the population and the economy. Through this conference, we're hoping to be able to open the eyes of the population on the different possibilities offered in Asia, and more specifically in China. We offer services in professional training, for example. We give further advanced studies in Chinese and Asian studies. We offer a diploma in business administration and a certificate in Asian studies and research. We have a fellowship as well, a research fellowship. In other words, it's a research program that somebody can come here to do the research, and they can qualify for a diploma in research. I've already mentioned the language school as well: Arab, Indian, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. We also offer translation from and to these different languages. Now, in terms of our cooperation with the municipalities of here, we are at your service to meet your economic and research needs, to give training in different cultural diversity and in languages, and translation as well. Now, to come back to the language and diversity issues, we do not give any French language or English language courses. We are specialized in the minority languages only. Now, in terms of our partnership with the governments here and municipalities, we would like to work with the Francophone world in the cultural competency development, the preparation for the integration of immigrants. We don't give the training to the lower level of studies for the immigrants, but those who have advanced studies, who have their doctorate or their master's, and who have to become taxi drivers. We'd like to try and help save these people, give them the training to allow them to work in a field of their specialty. We also organize visits in Asia. For example, if you are planning on sending a delegation to Asia, to China, to India, we have qualified staff on site to give the preliminary training necessary for the delegation to allow them to communicate when they arrive in the country in question. We also have relationships established between Atlantic businesses and Chinese businesses who would like to do business here. The second part of my presentation is on the possibility of working with the Francophone world. We'd like to create a position of Francophone Development Manager. We'd like to do this, to offer this position in the different provinces, a person who is responsible for the development here in the Atlantic provinces, and to open up the community on the different possibilities that do exist in this era of globalization. And as I've already mentioned, well, I have to mention this to you before I wrap up. We are offering a regional conference on the role of China and Asia in the growth of the population and the economy in Atlantic Canada. It will be held on February 3rd and 4th, and we need your help for this because it'll be a first. This conference will be a first in Atlantic Canada, and its objective is to reflect on the economic and demographic situation of the Atlantic provinces and then establish recommendations. We've started going around the region. I was in PEI this past week. I also went up to the Miramichi. Tomorrow I'm going to St. John and to other municipalities to promote this conference. So it's a very high-level conference that we are planning here for next February. It will be a first in Atlantic Canada, and it will bring together government experts, researchers, business persons, and we want it to become a location for frank discussions. As we know, New-Brunswick specifically has lost its population according to the 2011 census, and this may be a trend that is ongoing over the next few years. So this is the time to sit down and to discuss this problem together. Now, we are asking for the help of the local municipalities and of the provincial government. And from the community of Dieppe, then, we're asking for $600 to $1,000 to help us out in this conference that is going to bring together some very high-level experts. We would also ask for your support to create the position that I mentioned that we call the Francophone Development Manager. We know that the Anglophone schools also have a Chinese language at the high school level, but this is not offered in the Francophone schools. We would like to be able to do the same thing for the Francophone community here in Dieppe and region, and be able to present an introduction to the Chinese language to the high school students here, because we know that these minority groups are growing here in our region. So we would ask for your support. We're going to ask the provincial government as well, but what we would like from the municipal governments would be a letter of support indicating that you support the creation of this position. It would be a very interesting one, and it would offer a lot of possibilities to the Francophone population. We would ask then $39,000 for 1 year to cover the costs of this position. It would be a position here in Dieppe, and this person would also work in the other Francophone communities in Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. So in closing, I would just like to mention that the Institute for Chinese and Asian Research is here to serve you. We would invite you to participate actively in our different initiatives that really are of shared interest. And with your support, we know that we can succeed and that we can become a true power here in the region, because there is no similar institute anywhere else in New Brunswick or Nova Scotia, or in PEI, or in Labrador. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Do councillors have any questions? Councillor Béliveau. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry, perhaps I missed it, but your conference next February 3rd and 4th will be held where? It'll be held in Moncton. We've reserved the Crown Plaza for the conference. Thank you. That's all. Any other questions? Any further questions? If not, thank you for your presentation. And Mr. Melançon will follow up on your request. Once again, thank you. And it's a pleasure to meet you for a second time. And you will hear from us in the next few weeks. Thank you. And you're going to leave a poster here with Madame Duguay? We'll put it up here at City Hall. Thank you once again. And have a good evening. We're now on item 7.2. It's a presentation of the Capital Works Program. Mr. Leblanc. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. Good evening, councillors. I'm here to talk to you about the Capital Works Program and road construction. Are what we hope to accomplish over the next 4 years, in fact. So we've prepared it visually. You've already received some Excel charts full of figures on paper, but we put them all in a more visual format to allow you to see easily what roads will be under construction over the next few years. We've also added more details on the asphalt preservation program and our vision of the construction work that will take place over the next 4 years. So what I would like to do, perhaps, is to go through each one of these maps and to give explanations for each one of the next 4 years, explaining which roads we expect to work on. So if you look at the 2015 map, the main project that we'd like to get finished is the one that will repair and renew the Acadie Amiro streets through the Chartersville Marsh. It's quite the project, very broad-reaching, and we expect to start over the winter if everything falls into place. Most of the work on the street itself would be done during the months of April to the end of next fall. This is the only road construction project other than the Benjamin Street in the industrial park where there isn't a lot of traffic. Now, the resurfacing as well. There's going to be work done on Centrale Street from Barachois to Vanier. Also on Fox Creek here, there will be some resurfacing work from Amiro to Melançon, its whole length, as a matter of fact. And we're going to replace a culvert that is located close to Leblanc Street, Leblanc Road, that is starting to create major problems. All of that will be done next year, as well as the resurfacing of Pascal Street and the resurfacing of Adélard Savoie and on Dysart as well, just a little section here. You'll notice that there's some micro-surfacing that will be done. It's what you see in green here. It's just little sections of streets here and there throughout the city, including Gorvet and Terrien streets, and between Champlain and Chartersville. In the Dieppe East subdivision, you'll notice that over 3 years, there will be work done to put some concrete curbs and to resurface these streets. Those streets are due for resurfacing, so we'd like to take the opportunity and take advantage of it to do the some concrete gutter curbs. Right now they're asphalt, and it breaks up very easily because of snow removal efforts and so on. So that would be on Airport Tower, and a section of Lever streets we are proposing to do in 2015. On Champlain Street, you see both ends of it. This was a request that we made to the Department of Transport. And so that pretty well summarizes what we're planning for 2015. Perhaps we go any further. Perhaps we could take questions 1 year at a time. Are there any questions on 2015? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I see that you're planning on resurfacing Fox Creek, and Councillor Leblanc has pointed out that the ditches are often full there. So when you do the sidewalks, are you planning on doing that at the same time? Or is it not a part of it? Well, what we're proposing here is just the resurfacing of the existing asphalt. Thank you. Councillor Leblanc. Thank you, Your Worship. Well, my question is very similar as Councillor Thibodeau's. Where there's a lot of busy roads, for example, are there any other roads other than Fox Creek that needs the ditches redone? Well, Melançon is the first one that comes to mind. It's right beside Fox Creek. So Melançon from Célestin to, sorry, wrong pen here. From here to here. Well, right up to the city limits. There are ditches, and on Bourke Street there are also ditches, the whole length, and Fox Creek. Those are the three main ones that have ditches. I really appreciate that, and when people drive on it, I think they'll appreciate the extra space, because when you build an extra lane, people get the impression that it's not going to be looked at further for the future. But there's always concerns for every good thing. For every good thing that happens, there are still some concerns. But once you've done the resurfacing, of course, perhaps then we can look at improving the safety of the street. You're not going to, after the resurfacing, you're not going to come back a year later to make the road safer, to fill the ditches and add a sidewalk, because I don't imagine that you're going to go back to that same street in the next few years. No, we haven't planned anything in the next 5 years to come back to Fox Creek. If we want to add curbs and a sidewalk on one side, it would be about $3.1 million. That would be my next question. Did you have any estimated costs of what it might cost to be able to do these improvements on Fox Creek? Thank you. I might take this opportunity to ask a question myself on this street. Because of the development of the Dieppe Boulevard that might eventually continue on all the way to Dover Street, wouldn't that cause the need to redo the storm sewers, for example? I mean, that might have an impact on Fox Creek. Well, no, not for Fox Creek. Maybe on Melanson, but not on Fox Creek. Thank you. Councillor Godet. Yes, to come back to Fox Creek, I think it might be better aligned to allow a pedestrian, a much safer pedestrian walkway path. I think the car lanes are larger than necessary and larger than they are elsewhere. So I would really like it if they changed the lines to allow for greater safety for those who want to walk along that street or ride their bikes on it. I have another question. In Lakeburn, in those groups of houses, wouldn't we be able to do that over a 2-year period rather than 3? Well, there's no difficulty in doing that. It's just a question of budget. Because it's not an enormous amount, and if we were to divide it into 2 rather than 3, it would seem more logical to me. And it would be much more satisfying to the residents. It's about $800,000 worth of concrete curbs, as well as the asphalt work. So it's really all a question of budget. We chose those streets based on the needs, the level of the asphalt service, its needs. So the airport and tower streets are not quite as good condition as the others, so we're going to start with those. But as we move ahead in time, the others would be in the same condition. There's no problem doing it over 2 years instead, if that's the wish of council. For example, Manuel Street, which is the street between them. Anyhow, I'm just putting that out there. It could be a consideration depending on the different proposals that are made. Yeah, depending on the budget and depending on the tenders we receive. But that's what I would like to see. Thank you. It's something to take into consideration, Mr. Leblanc, perhaps as you develop your program. Okay, thank you. Now, following Councillor Godet's first question on the alignment, or the lines, either I dreamt it happens sometimes, or either I was told that the issue of the lines on Fox Creek, once the resurfacing is finished, we would repaint the lines. Well, there's no definitive plan. It's a possibility, but it is a possibility it is possible to change the lines when you redo the asphalt. We could do something similar to what we had done on Melanson between Fox Creek and Dieppe Boulevard. There's a pedestrian section on either side. The traffic lanes are a little narrower. That would be a possibility for Fox Creek as well. Well, it would be preferable to do one side properly. Thank you, Councillor Béliveau. Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the question of the width of the lane on Fox Creek, is it outside of the standards of the municipality? Because it seems that the lanes are wider than elsewhere. Is that true? Are they the same width as elsewhere in the city? You're talking about the traffic lanes? Yeah, the traffic lanes. No, they're according to our standards. We have different widths in different areas of the municipality, but that's the standard recommended, 3.75 meters wide. So could we consider making them more narrow? Well, yeah, we can reduce them to 3.5, 3.45 meters, which would allow more room for pedestrians. I mean, the vehicles would be a little closer to each other. When you have large vehicles, of course, pedestrians feel the vehicles are closer to them, especially if we add 2 pedestrian walkways. Yes, just so the vehicles don't exchange their paint, right? Right. But what we did on Melançon Street is according to their standards as well. It's just a little narrower, so their vehicles don't have that much leeway. But that's the compromise that must be made. And also, if I'm wondering if you're looking at the possibility in Dieppe East of accelerating the work. Are you using amounts that you hope to get in future budgets? If you do it in over 2 years instead of 3, what might not be done during those 2 years? Well, that's the kind of decision council has to make. There has to be a trade-off on one side or the other. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. Well, we might get an idea of that when we talk about 2016. Councillor Godet. Well, all I wanted to say is for people's benefit here, Chartersville Road, in terms of its width for the traffic lanes, the lanes are 10 feet wide approximately. Yeah, 3 meters, 10 feet. And on Fox Creek, they are how wide? 3.75 meters. Yeah, 12 feet. So if we brought them down to 11 feet, that would give about 2 extra feet to ensure pedestrian safety. That's my point. And the drivers would still have an extra foot, I mean almost a third of a meter in each one of the lanes, which is very reasonable in my mind. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to 2016, if there are no further questions on 2015. So, 2016. I'll start with the reconstruction projects, as I did earlier. So on Sunset and St. Therese Streets, we are replacing the water mains in 2016, so we will resurface the road at the same time. And on Chartersville, between Bourque and Pascal Streets, and it might include the installation of a sanitary sewer there, because there's a part where there is none. And it will also have to change the culvert that crosses the street. There's also work to be done, but the work that the Water and Sewerage Commission wants to install a main there, a sewerage main, and so the street will have to be dug up completely, really from one end to the other, and rebuilt completely. And then on the designated streets, we're going to work on, or the designated highways, we're going to work on Champlain from here, and there's also a culvert that needs to be replaced near Dawson Street. Now, for the asphalt preservation program here in the municipality, we're going to redo a section of Thomas Street from Gauvin to Thaddée, on Chartersville from Bahama to the corner of Thomas Central, on Melançon from Amiro to Central, on Melançon from Amiro to Bourque. We will resurface, and then they're micro resurfacing right up to Dieppe Boulevard. And then there's some minor sections to do as well here around the Dieppe from Gaspé to Peel on the tower. And then in Dieppe East, the second of the 3-year program with Cop and Emmanuel streets. And then in green, what you see in green are little sections of street where we need to do some microsurfacing as well. That's in 2016. Okay, that's 2016. Any questions? And if we look at Lakeburn, it seems to me that 2016 is such a minor project, it also almost doesn't make sense. But on 2015 and 2016, my point was that because of the major works that are going to be done in the marsh, and in order to not disturb or not stop traffic, could you tell us that there are no construction projects planned in the alternative roadways to avoid passing through the Chartersville March as much as possible? There won't be any work being done on Centrale, Thomas, Dieppe Boulevard, and all of the connections through Gauvin and so on. Can you ensure us that there will be no projects that will prevent the free-flowing traffic as much as possible during the construction of the marsh as much as possible? We're back in 2015. We're back in 2015. And so there's Pascal Street, where there will be some resurfacing. That could be questioned. It's a job that won't take nearly as much time, and it won't disrupt the traffic nearly as much as what will be done elsewhere. So I think what we're presenting here is very realistic. And it's meeting the objective that you are looking for, and that of preventing disruptions to traffic as much as possible because of the work on Amiro Street next year. But on Pascal Street, it's resurfacing in 2015. It's the kind of resurfacing that was done on Chartersville this year. It's going to be very difficult. So if I don't know if it makes sense to do it all at the same time, because you're going to be eliminating one of the alternative routes for the marsh. Yes, we're aware of that. And how long will it take? Oh, no, how long will it take, that project? If you take Chartersville, for example, just to compare, it's very similar. So we have to remove the asphalt layer, and then we have to repair the curbs on both sides, and then what we did on Chartersville is we covered the cracks that remained, and then we did the final coat. So it took, I don't know what, a month and a half in total. Well, I live on Chartersville, so to me it seemed like it took 3 months. Yeah, it took 3 months easily, and so if you're going to be working on Pascal during 3 months during the summer, and people on Pascal, I'm sure that they're not going to really appreciate it if I say it like this, but perhaps we should review our program. And same thing for Centrale Street, because Centrale becomes so important for the traffic to be redirected to Thomas or Pascal. And like Councillor Gaudette already mentioned, we really, I think, should review the alternative roadways, because people might be really happy when the marsh work is all done, yeah, but there's going to be a construction work during an 8-month period with all of the cars that come up from Memramcook, from Saint-Anselme, and from everywhere else south of Chartersville. Well, for Amiro Street, we know that that will disrupt traffic. We're talking about a period from April to November, 7 months. Now, it's going to be a gravel road, the full width. It's going to be six lanes wide, but gravel. So other than going through a construction zone with gravel, I mean, there will still be room for vehicles to drive by. I'm not trying to minimize the impact it's going to have. Yeah, yes, as we say, please don't sugarcoat it. Yeah, and our challenge, though, is that we want to also work on our asphalt preservation program elsewhere in town. And if we want to do Pascal Street another year when Chartersville is going to be closed, that won't work either. So if we say that what we're not going to do in 2015, we have to do in 2016, well, then it's going to be impossible to drive at all, except for the couple of houses. I mean, people won't get by at all for a couple of months. So it's like the asphalting that just slows this traffic down. And then the following year, we're talking about Thomas, Chartersville streets. So, I mean, at some point, you have to choose where you want to work, and that's what we've tried to do here. So I think in 2016, we see that we can't do the work planned for 2015 at the same time as 2016 because that will also paralyze traffic. We took notes of everything we did this year. We learned our lessons. There was some work that needed to be done, and there were some days that it doesn't seem like a lot is going on, but there's concrete that needs to dry. It needs to harden sometimes before you can move on to the next step. There are some inconveniences as well. Perhaps we could shorten the time and work on the timing of the activities on Acadie Street as well. I think it's more Pascal Street that might be borderline. I think we can still do it. Centrale Street, well, that's far enough away from Acadie, Amiro, that we won't notice the difference. Vanier will be available, Chartersville, there's possibilities of zigzagging through. Bourke Street is available. There's a number of alternatives to avoid the work that will be done, considering that the street will not be closed completely. I know it'll be slowed down, traffic won't be flowing as freely as when there's no construction, but that's our challenge. Okay. We've given you the challenge. Councillor Leblanc, thank you, Your Worship. I know we talked about roads that will be suffering an impact when somebody talked about the traffic on Fox Creek, and then they take Centrale and Pascal. When Amiro is not available, people take Fox Creek and Pascal or Thomas, and I think that's a problem. And if they're going to be resurfacing it there as well. In 2016, I see that you're planning to do the Thomas. Chartersville from Thomas to Bahamas. Didn't we just do that? No, it was a little higher up. It was from Thomas towards Bourke. So this is the lower section that hasn't been done yet. Okay. Okay. So I don't think there's any magical solution here, because there's work to be done every year. Well, that's the challenge of the engineering. We've been giving them money for the last few years, and they have a lot of work to do, and we've experienced it in part this summer as well. It was difficult. We heard it from everybody on Dieppe Boulevard, on Gauvin, on Chartersville. Everybody's really happy now that the work is done, but is this all just comes down to the budget. Councillor Thibodeau, thank you. Well, my question is on the resurfacing of Thomas Street in 2016. Thomas, aren't we supposed to have it realigned in order to go join up with La France? Isn't that a little bit of a waste to resurface it when it's a couple of years later it's going to be realigned? Where it's going to be changed? Well, I'll try and become an artist here and show you where the road is going to go. Okay, here you have La France and Gauvin Street, and the realignment will be here. Between Gauvin Street and Thériault, there's no problem, that remains. The only part, and your question is an excellent one, the only part that's going to be affected is here between Thaddée and De Varennes. Now we're going to have to look at that very closely. This year we delayed the realignment of Thomas Street. The part that I just drew in blue, I think it's scheduled for 2018 or 19. It's planned. So, and that will have to be in cooperation with the developers, of course. So that's a very good point. That is a decision that we're going to have to bring back to council. Should we invest money in it or not? Unfortunately, it is deteriorating, and if we put it off, well, we're going to have to spend a lot of money on patching that is going to be removed altogether after that. So it's not an easy decision. But from Thomas to Gauvin, between Gauvin and Thériault, yes. Yeah, that section of Thomas is very, very damaged. It's probably one of the worst in that area. Okay, is that all for 2016? So let's move on to 2017. Okay, we'll start with the reconstruction projects. In 2017, we'd like to finish Boulevard Dieppe between Melanson and Boulevard Dieppe. That's the next section of Dieppe Boulevard, between Melanson and Leblanc. We'd also like to do Acadie between Champlain Street and Gould Streets. There's a water main that must be replaced, the sanitary sewer as well, and that's why we're talking about reconstructing the street. Now, towards Gauvin, we'll do the section of Gauvin between Labrador and Doname, and we would reconstruct, or rather, we would build an intersection with traffic lights at Champlain College Streets. So, just like we just did at Champlain and Industrial, Champlain Street becomes 5 lanes wide and so on, with traffic lights. Now the extension towards the south, that would come in future years. You'll see in 2018, for example. Now we're also looking at adding traffic lights at Melanson Amiro. We think that by 2017 they could be justified there, adding traffic lights because of the increased traffic. Now, in brown, those are sanitary sewers. So here in the same area, Champlain and College Streets, there's a sanitary sewer that must be replaced here. And it's well south of Gauvin, so we want to install that below the streets. Of course, before they're finished, that's the plan. We still have a lot of design work and so on to do, but by 2017, we should be able to align all of those jobs. At the other end of town, it would connect Cop and Champlain Streets. This is related to the industrial park expansion and to eliminate a pumping station on Champlain Street and to allow gravity-based flow. And the resurfacing of streets, Thomas, from Tadé to Juniper, Gaspé and Bellevaux, a part of Vanier, Grégoire, and Dieppe Boulevard between Chartersville and Englehart. In green, that's micro-surfacing. There's some on Ferdinand, on Paul Street, on Benoni. Anyhow, a variety of smaller streets here and there. So that is 2017, Your Worship. Thank you. Designated highways? Yes. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry. The designated highways between Chartersville and Denis Street. We want to resurface the street in 2017. There's probably some sanitary sewer works to be done there as well. Thank you. Questioners. Councillor Gaudette. Every time we hear traffic lights, I think we're going to have to change the name of our municipality to Stopville. We end up now where we have to stop every 2 or 3 corners, every 2 or 3 streets, and there are other options, Your Worship. I think we have to look at that very seriously. Thank you. Councillor Leblanc. Thank you. Mr. Leblanc, no. I was complimenting you. Now you're going to turn off my mic, right? I can see it coming. Okay, thank you. I think that perhaps we can talk about the extension of Dieppe Boulevard all the way to Leblanc Road. And now what are we planning for that? Well, it would be to continue the same kind of street, like the rest of Dieppe Boulevard with sidewalks, lighting, curbs. So you think you'll really have it all opened up by then, that you'll be able to build it by then? There's a lot of preparation work to do. Well, 2017, that's when the full amount will be put to it. I mean, it might be spread out over 2 years. It depends on what happens before. There's still some work that needs to be done with the development. There's the fire station that's going to be opening shortly. That's what we're planning at this point in time. Thank you. Councillor Leblanc. Thank you. 2018. We'll start with the designated highways. We're planning on resurfacing Champlain from Dieppe Boulevard all the way up to the city limits, or the Moncton Flight College, I think, that year. To remove a layer of asphalt and replace it. And there's little sections of street here and there that are planned for 2018 as well. Planned to be resurfaced, a section of Gould here, a section of Evangeline, Frédéric, Chiasson, Denis, Alexis Grande-Vallée, Roussard, and so on. Really spread out a little bit all over. And in green, it's the micro-surfacing. Now, actual construction work, well, that's when we're planning to build our first roundabout at Gauvin-La France Street, and our second roundabout would be at College and Gauvin intersection. And at the other end of Gauvin, which would lead us to our future uptown. Now, the sanitary sewers, that's the second part of the major project between Pascal and Cobb Streets. Here, the sanitary sewers. What you see in brown here, there's also the culvert under Lorette Street that would be replaced that year. The further we go, the fewer questions there are. Thank you for your presentation. As Councillor Gaudette mentioned earlier, and it's been raised by other councillors as well, I think we really have to think seriously about the impact of these different road construction jobs in 2015. If, of course, if our provincial and federal counterparts fulfill our wishes of funding, then we're really going to have to think about the work that needs to be done on Pascal Street. Perhaps there's a way to do it outside of rush hour. Perhaps there's other possibilities, other scenarios possible. Even evening work when there's not a lot of traffic on Pascal Street, for example. You know, a different season, perhaps. Well, the season is at some point, I mean, either in the spring or summer, some part of the fall. I mean, you have to pave the street at a certain time of the year, so you have limits in terms of the season. But we're still going to take note of all of the comments made by councillors. Thank you very much for your presentation. We are now on number 8, question by members of the public. If not, we move on to the adoption of minutes. The minutes of the regular council meeting that was held on November 10th. It's been moved by Councillor Leblanc, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. On the question, Councillor Gaudette. Yes, if I can find it. The Motoplex on page 32 of our package. Was that a car dealership? No. It says to allow a car dealership with an outdoor showroom for recreational vehicles. I never understood. Well, maybe that was the wording from, I don't know. What was it? They talk about RVs, motorized vehicles, but not cars. It was recreational vehicles, all-wheelers, four-wheelers, and so on. Because I think that it's not correct what is said, both in English and in French. Oh, the owner is here. There's an association that is specific to car dealerships, and there are bylaws, there are regulations for the dealers, and when they developed my plan, it fell under the same regulations. So if a car dealership has a parking lot, he needs an outdoor display parking lot, and they just added the same regulations from the association, the car dealership association. So you don't intend to sell cars? No, not at all. I think we'd have to see if it's necessary to use that wording. That's a question that can be dealt with, Mr. Fournette. Perhaps you could come back to council with that. And perhaps it could be modified to better reflect the current activities at the site without removing anything, but just to approve it for motorplexed. Yes. Thank you. It's noted. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. On page 34, it says the mayor leaves the room and leaves the chair to the deputy mayor, but it is not indicated anywhere that the mayor comes back. Shouldn't it? Okay, I see it. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being so concerned with my presence here. So if there's nothing else other than the things that we need to check on here in terms of the wording and the car dealership to make sure that it truly reflects what is a dealer of recreational vehicles. All those in favor then of the adoption of the minutes, and we'll have to review the changes. But if we could adopt the rest of the minutes, all those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. It's carried as with subject to the changes that need to be checked. Thank you. Motions, memorandums, and nominations. 10.1. Leisure and recreational facilities. Mr. Melanson. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The first resolution is the sidewalk construction at the Aquatics and Sports Center. So they want to construct a new storage area and a new work area for the lifeguards. Well, the construction work is done. At the end of the work, we realized that the emergency exit had to be reworked because of the work that was done. And in order to allow this new emergency exit and to do it safely, we need to build a concrete sidewalk. And you have this recommendation in front of you asking for the authorization of this work and that the expenditure be defrayed from this account number, and this would be at a cost of $8,955 to Avondale Construction. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council awards the contract for the construction work of a concrete sidewalk at the Dieppe Aquatic and Sports Center to Avondale Construction Limited at a cost of $8,955 plus HST, and authorizes this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3-3-30-12-7603, New ASC Warehouse. And that council further authorizes a budget transfer in the amount of $6,955 from account number 3-3-70-12-7607, Lights Amiro 1, to account number 3-3-30-12-7603, New ASC Warehouse. And I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Cormier. Ready for the question. Councillor Nolan. Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to know that with the emergency exit being on the same side as the pool, but the emergency exit from the basement, do we have to also connect that up in the future? Do we have to put a concrete sidewalk where the terrace was, where the patio was? It's just grass now. No, we're not planning on doing that because it's just, I mean, there might be one employee who leaves the basement, whereas this would be a lot of all the swimmers, all the public. But from the basement, no, they can go out onto the grass. And we also want the concrete to be able to remove the snow. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. Thank you. Now, is the work underway right now? Are we going to pour concrete here at the end of November? They're ready to work on it tomorrow morning. Your Worship. Well, the base is ready. The foundation is ready. We did it last week because we had enough money to prepare the base. So the gravel is done. Everything is there. We're just waiting for the concrete and for the approval. They're ready to do it tomorrow. I have another question, Your Worship. Will this be the last expenses for these improvements to the Aquatic and Sports Center? Yes. The project is finished. This was not a part of the project per se, as Mr. Melanson said. With the reorganization of this site around the extension, well, we wouldn't have been able to go there with the snow removal equipment. And also in discussions with the fire chief, it helps. Everybody is guided towards the same area, towards the parking lot. And it's the last expense, yes, the last. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Gaudette. Thank you. What would be the width of this sidewalk? 4 feet, 1.2 meters. It seems to me that because of the safety you're talking about, and in a situation, an emergency situation, and when it's going to be necessary, when it's going to be used, it would seem to me that it would have to be a minimum of 2 meters. That would be much safer than something narrower. I can just add that it's not the only emergency exit. There are others, and what was recommended was that width, 4 feet. Because when you are in that kind of situation, it takes something that's wider than 2 people wide, and what you're talking about is barely wide enough for 2 people side by side, or 2 people meeting in the other direction, without having to go on to the snow or the rain. Well, everybody will be going in the same direction. If it's an emergency exit, everybody will be going in the same direction. Thank you. All those in favor of the resolution will indicate by an aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Thank you. Nay for Councillor Gaudette. 10.2, Planning and Development, Building Bylaw, Z11, Proposed Amendments. We've received a recommendation from the province, an indication that the act would be modified, so we want to modify our own bylaw to make it to comply with the Community Planning Act, so this is why we need to amend the bylaw. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council requests the views of the Planning Advisory Committee with regards to the proposed amendments to Building Bylaw number Z-11 for the adoption of the Barrier-Free Design Building Code in order to comply with the amended Community Planning Act, which requires the adoption of said code. And I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. On the question, Councillor Béliveau. I can understand that this would apply to municipal buildings. It only applies to municipal buildings. Is that right, Mr. Fournette? Your Worship, to answer Mr. Béliveau, it's now mandatory by the province, and we have to modify buildings. Any building of 20 units or more, according to the new code, it has to have 1 unit that is adapted for persons with disabilities. If you have an apartment building of 21 units, there has to be one that has to be with lower counters, wider doorways, and so on. There are other standards as well in terms of the parking, the width of the parking, and so on for people with reduced mobility. So it's not only for government and municipal buildings, but also for multi-family buildings. Does it also apply to the access to buildings? For example, buildings do they have to have automatic electric door openers? You're talking about which buildings? Well, let's say it's a 20-unit residential building. Does it have to allow access, automatic door openers for somebody in a wheelchair, for example? Well, I could check for you for the next meeting if you want. But I would tend to think that the answer is yes, but I'll check. And we also have to make sure that there are ramps to allow people access to buildings. If I understood correctly, here in the municipality, all of our buildings must be accessible. All of our buildings do allow somebody to enter, somebody in a wheelchair to enter with ramps, with automatic door openers. There might be the Centennial Arena, though. I don't know. But I'd like to congratulate the initiative of doing this, because I know we were told to do it by the province. It's part of the provincial code, but I'd also want to make sure that we encourage all of our builders and developers to do the same, because it's something that allows them then to rent out their buildings or sell them if they also have allow reduced mobility persons. So I would appreciate your information when you can. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. If there are no further questions, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. Carried. The next resolution, 10.3.1. Yes, this is the water replacement project on Gauvin Road. This is asking for the approval of additional engineering fees. At the end of this project, there were some additional elements that had to be added for a total of $18,755 to the Gauvin Road water main and $7,252 for the Gaspé, Thibodaux, and Gould streets. This is for your approvement, your authorization this evening. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Leblanc. That council approves the additional engineering fees in the amount of $26,007.50 plus taxes to Crandall Engineering Limited relating to the Gauvin Road and Gaspé, Thibodaux, and Gould Streets water main replacement projects, and that this expenditure be funded from the following accounts: $18,755 from account number 3-3-35-58-7618, General Capital Budget, Gauvin Road Water Main Replacement, and $7,252.50 from account number 4-3-90-58-7618, Water and Sewer Capital Budget, Gauvin Road Water Main Replacement. And I so move, Your Worship. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Leblanc, seconded by Councillor Cormier on the question. Mr. Belleville. Thank you, Your Worship. Could I get the information that would explain why the funding must come from the general capital budget, seeing as it's a water main replacement? Shouldn't it come from the water budget? Mr. Leblanc. Thank you, Your Worship. The expense is spread out between the general capital budget and the water and sewer capital budget in the same proportions as the whole project. We did replace the water main on Gauvin Street, but we also reconstructed the street with sidewalks and so on. So that's the same proportion of the expenses. But this has nothing to do with the sidewalk and the curbs. It's the water main. Well, the additional engineering fees are related to the water on Gould, but on Gauvin Street, it's mostly expenses that come under capital budget. It's construction delays, the installation of a catch basin, the extra storm sewers, the speed humps that were installed, and all of those kind of construction costs. So it's more than just the water mains. It involves a lot of other elements, but that doesn't say so in the resolution. Well, it does. The amount of $26,007.50 plus taxes, 18,755 comes under capital budget, and 7,252 it comes under the water budget. There are certain engineering fees related to the water and other engineering fees that were related to the rest of the project. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question on the technicality here. We're talking about $26,007.50 plus taxes, but if you look at the details down below, you don't mention the taxes. So perhaps it should be added, plus taxes, or including, well, one is related to the other. It's the division of that amount plus tax. So, I mean, it goes without saying. No, it's no problem. We could add it in, add the words. Thank you. Okay. So we will add the words to the resolution. If there are no further questions, all those in favor of the resolution by adding plus tax on both of the amounts will signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. It's carried as presented. Our next item then, 11.1. This is a bylaw. Who would like to read the bylaw? Councillor Cormier, how's your voice? Thank you, Your Worship. It's a bylaw number Z-6-25, a bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe Municipal Plan bylaw. The Council of the City of Dieppe, duly assembled, enacts as followed. A bylaw to adopt the City of Dieppe Municipal Plan, being bylaw number Z-6, enacted on the 14th day of April 2008 and filed in the Westmoreland County Registry Office as number 25467 on the 25th day of April 2008 is hereby amended as follows. Schedule A-1, dated January 31st, 2008, entitled City of Dieppe Generalized Future Land Use Map, whenever it is mentioned in the text of the municipal plan, is amended by the map hereto attached as Schedule A-1-23. And I move this reading in its entirety. It's been moved by Councillor Cormier, seconded by Councillor Nolan. On the question, Councillor Leblanc. Thank you, Your Worship. I see that we're going to read this bylaw for a second and a third time. No, we're going to read it in its entirety, and then we're going to do third reading by title only. Well, Your Worship, following Councillor Gaudet's comment earlier to the effect that, the description of the Atlantic Motorplex, when I read the minutes of November 10th, and it was mentioned then that it was on Champlain Street in order to allow a car dealership with an outdoor display area. If we move this tonight, if we adopt this bylaw this evening, can we change the text of the resolution after the fact, after we've adopted it in third reading? Well, let me clarify the first question. In the rezoning, a car dealership is a permitted use. But when you read the definition of a car dealership in the zoning bylaw, I can read it to you if you want, but that's where the type of use, permitted uses are described. It says car dealership, which means uses of a building or for the sale of cars, light trucks, minivans, motorcycles, motorboats, RVs, and trailers, which also includes a display area and can include an outdoor display area or a repair shop or a maintenance shop for vehicles sold. So the usage permitted in the zone includes all of the above. So what's being projected here is already allowed in this zone. Thank you for that. So it's not necessary to change anything. Thank you. Any further questions on the bylaw Z-6-25? If not, all those in favor of its reading favor of it after reading it in its entirety will say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Thank you. So it's been carried according to its reading in its entirety. Now a third reading by title and the adoption of the amendment. Councillor Cormier. Thank you, Your Worship. It's bylaw number Z-6-25, a bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe Municipal Plan bylaw. And I so move its third reading. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. The bylaw number Z-6-25 is amended as approved here this evening. 11.2, zoning bylaw Z-8-39, Atlantic Motoplex. Who would like to read the bylaw in its entirety? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw number Z-8-39, a bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw. That Council of the Municipality of Dieppe duly assembled enacts as follows. A bylaw to adopt the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw, being bylaw number Z-8, enacted on the 14th day of April 2008 and filed in the Westmoreland County Registry Office as number 254677771 on April 25th, 2008, is hereby amended as follows. Schedule A, dated January 31st, 2008, entitled Zoning Map, whenever it is mentioned in the text of the zoning bylaw, is amended by the map hereto attached as Schedule A-32, and I move its reading in its entirety. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Gaudette on the question. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. So bylaw number Z-8-39 has been read in its entirety. And now for third reading, Councillor Thibodeau, by title only, and for its adoption. Thank you, Your Worship. It's a bylaw number Z-8-39, a bylaw to amend the City of Dieppe zoning bylaw, and I so move it the third reading by title and the adoption thereof. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Gaudette on the question. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. So bylaw Z-8-39 has been amended as moved here this evening, and happy digging. So number 12, notice of motion. If not, item number 13, inquiries and announcement by members of council. I think that we're starting on my left this evening, Councillor Béliveau. You have 4 minutes of glory. Thank you, Your Worship. The first thing I'd like to point out, and people have noticed perhaps, is Mr. Paul Gaudette writes an article in the Times and Transcript every 2 weeks on the trail network, and he assessed our network L'Étoile that starts at Pointe-du-Renard, that goes all the way to Dover. And if you read it, you will have noticed that he really commended it and said it was one of the nicest trails he's been able to walk on. He had a nice walk on it, so it was very well received, and it was very nice of him to say those words. I'd like to know when we're going to receive a report on the changes proposed to the construction schedules, Mr. Leblanc. Usually it's in the spring, I would think. Yeah. This year there's a chance that we're not going to review the schedule. So it's no changes really planned before next year. But usually we do it during the winter. We prepare it before the actual construction season in the spring. And I'm bringing this up this evening because I think we've had discussions on several occasions about where to place a pipe, and we had mentioned that we wanted to look at the possibility that the pipes be placed under one side of a street rather than right in the middle. And if this slows us down in the construction season in 2016, we could wait for another year. But otherwise, pipes are going to continue to be placed under the street. The last time we reviewed the construction specs. We reviewed the specs in 2014, but you said that it's normally done every 2 years? Well, there's no fixed schedule for reviewing the specs. We did it a few years in a row, and then there were a few years where there's no major changes, just a couple of words, and then now we're due for an in-depth assessment, but I hadn't planned on doing it this winter particularly. Well, I would suggest, Your Worship, that it is done this winter in preparation for the 2015 construction schedule. Several times people have asked us why we're continually placing all of our water mains and sewer mains in the middle of the street, under the middle of the street. And when there's a break in a main, then we have to dig up the whole street, all of the asphalt. So it's something I would like to recommend for the future consideration of the municipality. My last point, Your Worship, and the last report we received from the RCMP, I noticed that 9 times there had been action taken by our shared police force where they had investigated municipal bylaws. Would these be investigations in the municipal bylaws of Dieppe? I don't know. You'd have to give me the details. Well, this is just a report. We weren't told which bylaws were looked at in which municipality. We have no idea. But there were 9 incidents of this. I will look into it. I'll get back to you. During which period? Well, the last report that came out last week, the week ending yesterday. Well, perhaps you could answer Mr. Melançon by email, and he can send out the email to all members of council. Thank you. Thank you. Now, in terms of the amendments and modifications to the specs, perhaps you could you could talk to council on this. You don't necessarily need to review all of the whole big volume of specs, but just what Councillor Beliveau has suggested. It is an issue that has been raised on a number of occasions, and perhaps you could look at why we do it that way, why we should not go an alternative route, for example. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you. I have nothing to announce and no requests for information this evening. Thank you. Councillor Cormier. I'm in the same situation as Councillor Thibodeau. Nothing to report this evening. Thank you. Councillor Gaudette. Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to thank all of those who worked at the organization of the Congress of the Francophone Municipalities of New Brunswick. It really was very well received here in New Brunswick, and a number of participants from across the province found that it was very well organized here. Now, at the International Festival of Francophone Cinema, the FICFA, there were two movies in particular that received special mentions. There was a movement on the Utrecht Treaty. It's a documentary on the reality that led Acadia and 40% of the North American territory to be transferred to England by France, Portugal, Holland, and other countries. So it was a really interesting subject, and Paul Bossé received 2 prizes for this film. I'd like to congratulate him for that. And if ever you get the chance to see this film on the Treaty of Utrecht, it's a very interesting historical documentary. And at the closing of the festival, there was a film on the Moncton Cathedral. This is the monument to the recognition of Notre-Dame de l'Assomption for the Acadian people. It was an impressive film for the history and the details that are brought up in the church, and the stained glass windows that are not easily seen. But the film was really useful for making people aware of the need to preserve this cathedral. There's a project underway currently, as a matter of fact, to preserve the cathedral. And Your Worship, did Dieppe receive any requests to cooperate or to contribute or to participate in the safeguarding this monument to the Acadian population, to the Acadian people? Yeah, there was a document received by the administration, I believe, Mr. Melanson. Yes, it will be studied. Yes, we will look after it. Thank you. And the Atlas project, presented by Paul Surette, who made a request for assistance recently. Is that included anywhere in our end-of-year budget forecast? I had a conversation with Mr. Surette just before our meeting today, as a matter of fact, earlier today. And there was an amount included in the grants for 2015, yes. And so there was a request to sponsor 2 students to the Grand Réveil Acadien in October 2015. 2 students? No, we haven't received that request. We received a request from a choir, but not from the students. Maybe it's still, you're going to receive it. Have you received a request from the seniors for a mosaic in the park? Have you received any requests in that sense for mosaic culture? No, I haven't. Personally, I'm looking at the Leisure and Recreation Department, and I'm just wondering where we're at here. Thank you. And the last item, what is being what is being projected for public art in 2015? Perhaps another question that we could come ask the leisure services, and they could send the answer to all members of council, please. Councillor Leblanc. Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to start by thanking all of those who, the over 100,000 people who watched the Santa Claus Parade last Saturday evening. It was a wonderful event. It was a wonderful evening. I'd like to make a special mention of all of the volunteers who came for the parade. It was greatly appreciated, and without the volunteers, numerous volunteers, the parade would not have known the success it did. Furthermore, people got together to contribute non-perishables for a total of 4,936 pounds were given to the Food Depot Alimentaire, which is an increase of about 1,000 pounds compared to last year. So I'd like to thank all of those who joined in and for the cause of the Food Depot Alimentaire. And I'd like to wrap up by congratulating the City of Dieppe that won first place in the small commercial division. So they came in first this year. Congratulations. Thank you. That's all. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you to you and all your little elves. Thank you. Councillor Brideau. Thank you. I'd like to remind people from Dieppe and from the greater Moncton area that next Friday we'll have our radiothon for the Tree of Hope, the annual Tree of Hope, l'Arbre de l'Espoir, and it's a very special day. A great number of volunteers will work that day to try and reach the objective of $1.5 million once again this year. I will be there myself. I will be there to receive your phone calls. I will be on the phone to receive your donations. It'll be held next Friday. I would really encourage people to participate in great numbers in this radiothon. And we know all of this money goes to the Dumont Hospital Center Foundation. Thank you. Councillor Nolan, thank you. And as everybody can see, my mustache needs your help. The Movember campaign every year tries to raise money and awareness for men's health. So I would ask everybody's support, everybody here in the room, everybody at home, to make a donation to my campaign or to Jacques Leblanc's campaign. You might have seen his participation. You can go to ca.movember.com. You can put my name, Jordan Nolan, or Jacques Leblanc's name. You can find us there. Are you on the website as well, Jean-Claude? Are you on the website? No? Well, if you want to make a donation, go to Jacques or my campaign, and it'd be greatly appreciated. And if you want to give money for Jean-Claude's campaign, put it in my name. So, and I'd like to thank all of those who participated in the Santa Claus Parade as well. And it was really appreciated. People were very accommodating with all of our requests. Everything went over very well this year. Not that it didn't the other years, but this year it was truly exceptional. So thank you to everybody who participated. Thank you. Thank you. And I also would like to point out the success of the 25th meeting of the convention of the Francophone Municipalities Association, and I'd like to thank councillors who came and participated in the event and the different workshops and conferences. I'd like to thank everybody for their help over and beyond the normal duty, and of Mr. Melançon as well, and Madame Nicole Leblanc, who was the principal organizer of all the logistics, and the logistics took a difficult turn when we heard of the closing of the Ramada Hotel, which changed the plans very quickly. But these things happen. Sometimes it's good things come out of these unfortunate events. We'll see what the future holds. But in terms of the 25th meeting of the association, it was a great meeting. And I'd like to congratulate Mr. William Bill Malenfant. I'd like to congratulate him, a former mayor, for the prize he received. Louis G. Robichaud Award for his contribution to the municipal world. And that's all for this evening. Have a great evening, everybody. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I forgot. I'd like to thank everybody for your efforts in the last week in the budget deliberations. Thank you for your cooperation of staff, of all councillors, and for in view of another year. We're hoping the figures from the province will come in, and hopefully we will have another year without a tax increase. Thank you and have a great evening.